Awesome. All right, if you want to go to the next slide. So, part of our State of the Schools address is to talk about who we are. And as everybody knows, we've had a giant transition this year, going from a K-8 to a pre-K-5 arts magnet. Last year, we spent quite a bit of time with our staff, with an arts leadership team, and with Site Council and Family Connections to talk about our mission and our vision and what we wanted it to look like this year. So we created a brand new mission and vision for this school year, which is posted on the PowerPoint. A couple of things that were really important to the people that gave input was our mission is for all students to feel empowered to create, participate, and find joy in their own way. We want learning to be a joyful experience here at Marcy and for kids to navigate all the different arts opportunities that we give them so that they can really figure out who they are and how to express themselves. Our vision talks about what we're able to provide for students. So we have specialist programming, we have music, art, theater, dance, physical education, media arts, and we have band for grades 4 and 5. We also do classroom arts integration. We will have performances. Right now, we're recording our performances, but someday we will have in person, live, fantastic performances. And we also do artist residencies where we have visiting artists come in and teach our students. So we have, those are all of the things that we offer around the arts at Marcy. And we know that using the arts and combining that with strong academic content is going to help our students make deep connections and be excited to be lifelong learners. So currently we have 532 students at Marcy. I'm going to be going really fast, so please, there's reactions where you can raise your hand or do different things if you want me to slow down and ask questions. I do have a tendency to go through very quickly, so I want to slow down if you need me to. 14% of our student population receives special education services. 50% of our student population qualifies for free and reduced lunch from the educational benefits forms that our families have been filling out. We have 16% of our school population are English language learners. 8% are identified as advanced learners, and about 4% of our student population qualify for support as homeless and highly mobile. As an arts magnet, we receive students from all across Minneapolis. The majority of our students last year attended one of three schools, Marcy, Falwell, and Sheridan. And as they modified and reconstructed some things in the district, the students that were in arts programming at Falwell and Sheridan were able to join us here and be part of our Marcy community. Our student population has shifted this year. It's different than how it was last year and the year before. Right now, we have 38% of our students whose families identify as African American. We have 2.8% American Indian, 3.3% Asian, 14.4% Hispanic, 28% white, and 12% that identify with two or more races or ethnicities. The special programming we have at Marcy, just to remind everybody and to highlight it because we're very proud of it, is centered around arts integration. Some of our school partnerships are the Community School Collaborative. We're able to offer therapy and special supports for our students and our families inside our school. We have Minneapolis Kids, we have community education. We also partner with Playworks, which is a recess organization. Did I forget anything, Donna, as we talk about who we are on this slide?
No, I think you've covered it pretty well.
Great.
I think that one of the things that we're proud of, but we don't share on this stat, is that we have more teachers of color than we've ever had here at Marcy. So I don't know the exact percentages, but it does make a difference for our kids to see students who or teachers who look like them.
Yes, great. Next slide, please, Claire. Marcy is a Title I school, so this part of the presentation is fulfilling our requirements as a school and what we're legally required to share with you as a Title I school. So I just want to let you know that. In the next slide, as we get there, we'll explain to you what it is to be a Title I school. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. Title I, it's a federal program. It gives money to school districts and helps us to provide more opportunities for our students to help them with their proficiency and to also help support the families. So all of the funding that we receive as a Title I school really does support our school improvement plan, which we'll talk about it in a little bit, and it helps us reach some of the goals that we set as a school, and that we're hopeful that our site council will be able to contribute to setting some of those goals. Next slide. We are a Title I program, so the way that the way they determine what amount of funding we receive as a Title I school is based on the responses of our families to the educational benefits form. If a family qualifies for SNAP or makes a certain percentage of a salary, we don't really know those kinds of numbers, then they're identified as a student that would contribute to our Title I numbers, which helps us get additional funding. So this last year with our school budget, we received $597,565. And that was about 9% of our total school budget. One of the requirements of Title I money is that we need to use it to improve academic achievement and to engage families. Those are the requirements of how we spend that money. Next slide. So this is how we used our Title I money and how we allocated it in the budget. We were able to have 4 staff positions that support with interventions around literacy and math. We use some of that money to help support smaller class sizes and to help hire 2 bilingual program assistants to support our families who need translations or interpreting services, and to help build that community connection between families and our school. We're also using it for extended time for teachers and support staff so that they have additional time for collaboration and professional development. And it also goes towards some instructional supplies, which are workbooks, copies, and books and other literature that students are using during instruction. The family engagement portion, a lot of the funding that we set aside for family engagement provides interpreters for parent-teacher conferences, interpreters for site council and other school events, and it's also refreshment for school events, like when we have our open house at the beginning of the school year and we're able to do like an ice cream social and different things like that. That's where the funding for those events comes from. Any questions? All right. So you guys, as families whose students attend a Title I school, you have rights. And so this slide is going to share some of those rights with you. You have the right to request information from the district about whether your student's teacher meets the state licensing approval for the grade and subject that they teach. You have the right to request information about the qualifications of any paraprofessional that provides instruction at our school. You have the right to know how your child's school is rated on its state test scores. You have the right to expect regular communication with your school in a language that you can understand. You have the right to work with other families and staff to develop a compact between our school and our families. You have the right to help plan how money for family involvement should be spent. You have the right to work with teachers, other families, and the school principal to develop a family engagement plan. And you have the right to ask for a meeting with your school principal or your child's teacher at any time. So those are the rights that our families have when they send their children to a school that receives Title I funding. Next slide. Thanks, Claire. That is like the legal portion of what we have to share with our families around our Title I funding. Does anybody have any questions about Title I or how we're using our money or anything like that?
I wanted to share that this directly is part of why we ask parents to fill out the, well, I call them free and reduced lunch forms, but they have a new name. What's the new name, Trinity? Family.
The educational benefits form.
Yes, the educational benefits form. Even if you're a family who doesn't qualify to get anything different in your, like you make too much money to be able to get anything free, our school gets free lunch and free breakfast. But in order to sustain that, everybody's got to fill out a form each year so that we can continue to prove the need that we have. So it's just good practice. And you might hear us start squawking about that when it gets a little closer to Christmas time or to winter break, because we need to turn those forms in so that we are appropriately funded for the next year.
Trinity and Donna, are the rights, the Title I school rights, are they significantly different than other schools, than other non-Title I schools?
I don't think that they're significantly different. The difference is we have to share the rights explicitly with our families. So this PowerPoint will go on our website so that families can access our state of the school address, and so that they're able to access their rights as a Title I school. And we do have other Title I information on our website about the rights and some of the some of the ways that you qualify for Title I. It just has to be explicit. Normally when we do a State of the Schools address, we talk about our school improvement goals that we set every single year. Every school in the state of Minnesota creates a school improvement plan. And generally, the school improvement plan has goals around math, goals around literacy, goals around social emotional instruction for students. We haven't completed that process yet because our school has changed so drastically. So what we would like to show the families that have joined us today is some of our school data, and we would like to have everyone look at the data and reflect about what you're seeing in our data. And we'll be taking all of that reflection back to our instructional leadership team and talking with them about the things that our families noticed about our data so that we can prioritize what our school improvement goals look like. So that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of our meeting, is we'll be looking at our data. We did a bunch of different assessments with our students at the beginning of the school year. We did a FAST assessment, and for our kindergarten kids, it's the KCOM and the early reader assessment. And what you'll be seeing is the school data around those assessments. All right. Claire, will you go to the next slide, please? So as we're doing feedback, one of the things that they always ask us to be careful of is that we just try to be as factual about what we see and try not to interject like why we think the data looks a particular way. We just want to be as factual as possible. They gave some examples on this slide about 33% of second grade is at low risk in math, which I don't know if that's what our numbers reflect right now, but the difference between that and an assessment would be that they're at low risk in math because of the pandemic. So we're going to try really hard not to give reasons for why our data looks the way that it does, but just look at it and talk about what we see. All right, if you want to go to the next slide. So the two questions as we look at each slide is we want to talk about what successes do you see in the data and what challenges do you see in the data? Because you are going to see both of those things in each slide that shows our different types of data. They have a little link here. If anybody wants to click on that link, it's a like a Jamboard where you can give your feedback about each slide, or we can just have an organic conversation and I'll be taking notes about successes and challenges that we see in our data. I kind of feel like it's easier for people to just verbalize what they see versus trying to navigate clicking and adding more information on a Jamboard. So if you want to click on this, I believe I'm going to add the slide presentation to the chat one more time. And if you click on that slide presentation, you can fast forward to this slide and click on that live link. Okay. So the first bit we're going to look at is our kindergarten data and our literacy and math data that our kindergartners took. So if you want to go to the next slide, that'd be great. So our kindergarten overall reading proficiency, what you're seeing now is the 5 areas that kindergartners are assessed on in their reading proficiency and the different colors, what they mean. Like the bright pink is that they're at high risk. That means they're at high risk to not achieving the state standard for their grade level by the end of the school year. Some risk, and then their low risk is kind of that lavender color. So as we're looking at this data, what are some successes that we see around this data? If anyone wants to unmute themselves and throw something out there, that would be great.
Trinity, I have a clarifying question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it, excuse me, is it the teachers who kind of categorize as high risk, some risk, low risk, or is it like how do we get these numbers?
Yep, so we have specific assessments where the students take the assessments and then they say, okay, at this point of the school year, they have cut scores in the assessment and say, okay, at this point in the school year, students should be at this point and answering this many questions correctly, and that's how they put this data together. We actually get this data from our REA department at the district level. They put it all together for us. And they're the ones that kind of just determine that cut score and where we should be at certain points in the school year. So our students will be taking these similar assessments multiple times throughout the year so that we can chart their growth and make sure that if they're high risk, that we're getting them to low risk as much as we possibly can. So any successes that you notice?
I was going to ask a quick question, but I can share a success too.
Thank you.
Success being that none of the kindergartners are at high risk with letter sounds.
Yeah.
So my question was, I know what letter sounds and letter names are, but what are the other 3?
So concepts of print is when they start looking at their writing. I'm going to let Berkeley answer this because Berkeley taught kindergarten and he actually, I'm sure, administered these sorts of tests. So go for it, Berkeley.
Oh, put me on the spot, Trinity.
Absolutely.
Just kidding. So onset sounds are going to be like the first sound that you hear in a word. So the word run, the onset sound is that the run, first sound in that word. Concepts of print is going to be something more along the lines of like, as you're reading, do you understand how to read a book that's written in English? So the letters, start at the top of the page on the left side, they move to the right, you work down the page line by line. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that I'm not 100% sure what composite is. I'm assuming that you're talking about just like the composite scores of all the different sections. Is that correct, Trinity?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure either. All of our kindergarten teachers currently, yes, go ahead, Susanna.
Can I help you with that,
Yeah.
teacher? As I teach kindergarten before too, the composite part is when they compose like a complete sentences.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susanna. These questions get tricky for some of us that have never taught kindergarten, but this information is super helpful for our kindergarten teachers because they're able to look at it and determine what they need to do with like small groups and different things like that. Any other successes that we notice?
I see in concepts of print, there's so more than half of the kindergartners are at some or low risk of understanding how books work.
Great. What are some of the challenges that we see?
I would say, to me, if I was a teacher looking at this, the challenge would be just having such a range of readiness in one classroom. I mean, especially since this is kind of like a snapshot of where kids are coming into kindergarten for the first time, that would seem like a challenge to me, is having, you know, both kids that are low risk and high risk all in the same classroom with different, with all these different areas.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Every category has at least 50% or greater that are some risk or high risk. And then if I could also ask a question, and maybe this was answered, but I assume that like the best that a student could score is low risk, and that there's not like a no risk category or something.
Correct.
That's a good question, Taylor. Thanks. We forget because we look at these things every year.
Yeah. Okay. So as we are going through this, we're also going to be looking at how our data breaks down by race and ethnicity. So I believe that is our next slide with our overall reading reading proficiency. So again, our lavender is low risk, our pink is some risk, and our hot pink is high risk. And you can see that they broke it down by the ethnicities and races of our students. So what are some of the successes and challenges that we see? Let's start with successes. Do we see successes in this data?
I find that word success kind of frustrating for myself because I'm just staring at this data, and one thing I can say is that we have more Hispanic kids than we've had in the past, and they have the highest need in reading.
Yes, I will put that in one of our challenges, absolutely.
I have another question.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I think it was 12% of students are mixed or multiracial, which I was really happy to see that included, but I don't see that represented here. So I'm curious how that's incorporated.
So
Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Donna.
What I was going to share is that oftentimes we don't have that category shared with us in certain areas. So for us to even know at the beginning, it was because we asked the question, or the school itself got that information from the district. But we've often grappled with the fact that people are lumped together under certain categories, and it's usually based on what parents put on those unyielding forms. So let's say, I know within our Hispanic group, you can say if you consider yourself Black or white, which is very interesting to me, but you can say that. But in our African American group, that includes our Somali students. So everything's with a grain of salt with data. That is how I feel. And your child is listed in here based on whatever you put on the form first.
Okay, thanks.
It's not perfect.
No, it is not. Anybody have, I'm just going to ask if anybody has any other observations they want to share with the group about our data around kindergarten.
This may be an unanswerable question, but I would just wonder if like language spoken at home would be if English was spoken at home, if this would also sort of like look the same, just because the Hispanic high risk and low risk, or some risk and high risk, are so large.
Yeah. All of those factors come into play as we're working with our individual students in the classroom. But when we're looking at our overall data, we're not able to parse some of those things out when it's given to us like this. But yes, all of those things are contributors for sure. Any other observations? And then we'll move on to the next one. Our next one is going to be kindergarten math. And here is our overall proficiency. And this one gives us some students with like really pale lavender. That would be our enrichment students. And those are students that are really, they're understanding numbers, they have good number sense, they can count up to a certain number, all of those sorts of things. Any observations? I have to say that this process is a little bit dry. It is something that that feels better when we're having a conversation like this in person, and it is a little bit dry, but it is really important that we share some of our data with you so that families can see where our students are right now and help us figure out like where should our priorities be as we're setting goals for them. And this is a process that is different than how we've ever done it before. Minneapolis is having all of our schools go through a very similar process because they all have new student populations to look at this new the new data of the students together. And it's totally fine if there is nothing that people want to share or if you want to put it in the chat. I will not do too much teacher wait time so we can see some of our other slides, because we're going to go all the way through 5th grade, all the way. So does anyone have anything they want to share about math proficiency overall?
No, we can go to 1st grade.
Okay, they're going to show us the breakdown. Oh, there we go. 1st grade, yay. So 1st grade, here we have some similar categories and some similar, like we'll have word segmenting, sight words, sentence reading, decodable words, and high risk, some risk, and low risk. Anything that we notice about our 1st grade students?
And is this again based on tests at the beginning of the year?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. These assessments are super helpful for us at the beginning of the year so that we know where our students are, and the teachers use them for a lot of different things. All right, go to the next slide, Claire, please. And here we are broken down by ethnicity. Does anybody have anything that they're observing about this data that might be different from our math data?
It seems comparing kindergarten to 1st grade that the category for Hispanic students seems to have made like pretty awesome strides in 1 year.
Great. All right, let's go to the next one. So our math proficiency. Here's where we are with our math proficiency overall. Any observations?
Would this be unusual to see 100% here? Like, I don't know, that just strikes me. Anytime you see 100% of something, it's
Yes. As far as it being unusual, my understanding is that the tests that the students, like the assessments, are similar. It's pretty unusual, I think, to see 100%. All right, next slide. All right, so our 2nd through 5th grade students took a FAST assessment, and they're giving us all of those students kind of all on one slide. So it's a little bit nicer to see sort of the progression. This one is a little bit different because they've put the low risk and exceeds on the opposite end, kind of color-wise. It's not as linear, I guess, looking. Anything that we notice about this one?
that high risk number gets smaller every year.
Yes.
That's great.
2nd grade needs a lot of support.
Yeah, great.
Okay, that might have been an opinion. 2nd grade has 60% of their students who are in the high risk category.
Yes, thank you, Donna.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So the high risk category goes down as they go up in grades. The low risk category gets a little bigger, but the exceeds category is like all over the place. Why is that?
That's a great question. And we're not exactly sure. That's part of what our teachers dig into when they look at this sort of data.
In a typical year, we would have seen this kind of a reduction in high risk, but this isn't a typical year. So what we're looking at is very first time assessing a bunch of kids who've never been to our school before. And so we can't really discuss why, because we don't know them that well. We just know that when they came in, you know, and a lot of educators, myself included, had that. It's a reality. We're not supposed to talk about it during these slides, but you know, the whole idea that children spent a year and a half in a variety of ways that were not typical school. So not only is there that big variable, but also children are new to an environment and having to readjust to a new school with a bunch of different people in it and learn all the routines and rituals. So as we look at this, I'm excited to find out how much progress we can make this year to make some of these high risk categories go down.
Yep.
But we don't have enough information about our children to understand why that's so loopy, except that we got more kids who are in the exceeds category in 4th grade this year, and we don't really know why.
Okay, next slide. This is breaking our reading proficiency down by ethnicity.
And is this all 2nd and 5th graders combined?
Yes.
Yes, Claire. So you can see it, the N number right next to it. 129 African-American kids were assessed. 16 American Indian kids were assessed. So you're 63% of 16, you almost could do the math. So you can kind of get that perception or that idea in your head about how many kids we're talking about. Our Asian kids and Pacific Islanders are only 17 kids who were assessed. So, you know, data is very irritating. Oh, that's a statement that I shouldn't say. Informative, sort of.
Great. We can move on to the math.
Can I just say something about
Absolutely.
this? I would say that we need to find a way to reach African American students better. Maybe that's I don't remember the terms, assessment versus an assertion.
Yes.
But if we're saying that, you know, a lot of the Hispanic students are English language learners and they're only at 51%, well, I guess you're okay, probably a lot of the or a number of the African American students are as well.
Correct.
But yes, I think there's room for growth there in terms of the ways that we reach those students.
Absolutely.
All right, here's math proficiency by grade. Anything anyone wants to share? There's a couple of things that were put in the chat. Sydney asked, when do we get the next data? When you hear your students going home saying they did some FAST assessments, that's when we get the next data. And the next window for that is in December. So we will see data for all of our classrooms around December to see the growth that they've made so far this year. And then Sharon said, because of the redesign, this isn't a cohort moving from one year to the next, so it makes sense. Okay, if you want to move on to by ethnicity. Any comments or observations that anyone wants to share?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. Do you guys have a Somali interpreter?
I think Anissa should be on the call. Sydney, do you see her on the call?
I do not see her on the call. She said she would be here, but
Is it okay if I use my broken English?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I will call Anissa to see if she can come and join us.
Okay. My name is, first of all, my name is Tarawako. I am mother of Yahya Jama and Ugasu Jama and Yusuf Jama.
Mm-hmm.
Ugasu, she is kindergarten, Mark's class, and Yahya is Sarah Magan's and Sarah Hogan, her class, and Yusuf is Yahya is Megan's class, and Yusuf is Sarah class.
Yeah.
And my kids were going to school for long. I don't know, you guys know them, Yusuf and Yahya. They are very nice kids. They've been in the school for a long time.
Know them.
And to be honest, I really trust Marcy. And I love the teachers, everyone. And that's I never think I was taking to my kids to other school. Sorry. But now we are facing very, I don't know what to say, but my kids, their behavior is changing. I don't know if you guys notice. I don't know, is it in what's going on in the school? Every time they are talking about fight. And my two sons, when they come home, they will say, oh, let's go fight. We never have a problem. The school was peace, very nice school, but I don't know what's going on in this year. And I want to the staff, the teachers to be attention and look what's going on inside the school. And they can see more deep, because it's unacceptable what we are seeing in our kids. And that's what they say, that's what's happening in the school. I don't know if you guys know it.
Oh, yes.
So we're working on it. We're working on it with our kids. Me and my husband, we talk about it. That's why I'm working right now. And also, I'm here like 40 minutes or 43 minutes. So please and please, we love Marcy and everybody who works in that school. We want you guys to look what's going on and work on it with the kids. And there's a lot of fight. My kids never talk about fight. They always talk about the nice things they see in school, their teachers, how they love their teachers, everybody. But now our home become like a silence. And my kids, they only live with my husband and me. We don't have any other problems. But please and please, pay attention to that. Thank you so much.
I so appreciate your voice in this meeting, because we are working on behavior every single day. We don't try to talk about it in too negative of a light, but in creating a new school, in having brand new children in our school, we have many children that we don't know. And some of the children that have come to our school don't have the same background as the kids from Marcy have had, which is that we talk, we don't hit, we talk it out, we have a peaceful site, we have a peaceful school. We've had many unpleasant surprises, and I've had to meet with many parents already to help them understand how we do school here. And I have to say it's getting a little better, but our biggest problems happen to be at recess time, when children have a little bit more flexibility and are interacting with each other in a way that they become defensive right away, and then a fight might start. Trinity, do you want to talk a little also about the whole idea of the trauma and the pandemic part? Because we are, Trinity and I, to tell you the truth, are very tired people because we have had to talk to all these families who have never been here before and their children to help them understand our expectations. And they've been very different from some of the schools they're coming from. Go ahead, Trinity.
Yeah, so I think a lot of what we're seeing is, I know as an adult that I'm still trying to recover and not be so impacted by what we've been through for the last 18 months with education and, being at home and quarantining and all of those sorts of things. And all of our children feel the same way in a lot of different ways. So one of the things that we are really focusing a lot with our teachers and with how we're trying to support kids is we're going back to like Maslow's hierarchy and making sure that children's basic needs are being met and that they have the tools to talk about their feelings. They can name their feelings. They learn different ways to problem solve. And so these are things that our teachers are focusing on an awful lot this year. We have kids that, and my own children included, who spent a lot of the time during the pandemic online. So asking them to sit in a circle and engage with their teacher for 5 minutes is a struggle. Their stamina is low, and it's not anybody's fault. It's a situational thing. And then we have a lot of children that didn't have the opportunity to interact with other kids beyond their family. So the way that their family is able to resolve conflict may not line up with the next students that they come in contact whose families have different ways of resolving conflict. So these are all some of the very real challenges that we're seeing. And Donna says that she and I are tired, and our teachers, and I know everybody's feeling a little bit of tired because we're still in a situation where we have brand new students and our teachers are trying to build relationships with masks on their faces. And that's a really difficult thing. There is so much to language and so much to communication that is lost with a mask on your face. And it gives some of our students that feeling of like we don't know who they are, so then they don't feel like we are connecting with them as much as we could if we were able to see their faces, and when they're being redirected they could see the kindness and the love that we have for them. So it's multi-layered, and we are aware. We're working as hard as we can to figure out where our hot spots are and put things into place to prevent fights from happening. And we're working really hard to give students that need some of that additional support of figuring out how to manage their big feelings, and find different ways of problem solving to give them some of those skills that they may not have at this point. So I really appreciate you sharing your perspective.
And please tell your children that Marcy has not changed. We are just trying to get the other kids to understand the importance of peace and talking about problems, and and that kids who do get into fights have a consequence. We don't just let everything go. We, one family at a time, we are working to help them understand the expectations of our school.
Yeah. I feel like I don't want to just like jump on to the next thing. But I know that we have like 3 more slides that are Title I requirements. Is that okay if we move on to that? I can also just put it on the website. It's really talking to you guys about how to contact the school and how to volunteer at the school if you want to. Anybody else have any other comments or anything that they want to bring up to Donna and I while we have you for the next 10 minutes?
Claire, you can just flip through them a little.
Yes.
And just go, here's this one, okay, and
Yes.
we'd love to see you. And then there you go.
Thank you, thank you. Yay, we do appreciate you. And that is the end of our presentation for our State of the Schools. I am sorry that it felt so painful today. It was a little dry, a little painful today to look at our student data. But as we've heard some comments from all of you that there are areas that we need to highlight and we need to work on. So we'll be doing a similar exercise with our teachers, kind of whole group with our instructional leadership team, and then we'll be creating our school improvement goals, and those will look very much like we will want to increase our proficiency from this percent to this percent by the end of the school year. And we'll be writing some social emotional goals to put in our school improvement plan as well. And then when we have a school improvement goal, what we do with it is our teachers get together. They have professional learning communities twice a month, and they have time to look really closely at student data and plan strategies on how to support all of the students in their classroom. And all of their professional learning communities goals and strategies are linked to our school improvement goals. So it kind of helps give us the vision of what we need to do academically and socially for our students. So we have 8 minutes left. Is there anything anyone wants to say, or Donna, you want to share something about what's happening at the school? Anything?
No, I don't have a lot to say. It really resonates with me though, and I really want everyone to understand that we want to keep the integrity of our school the same. We want to keep it high, and we want to keep it peaceful. And it's been tricky. And so the words that you shared with us were so important because children might come home and share with their parents that it seems a little less controlled. Now, I have to admit to you that in the classroom, for the most part, there's a couple of classrooms that are a little dysregulated, but for the most part, it's beautiful. You go in the classrooms and kids are learning and the teachers are enthusiastic. As usual, we still have a new group of teachers that are very strong and very good. So when I visit the classrooms, it all looks terrific. It's recess, it's lunch, it's talking to each other and getting defensive right away. But we also have to get to know those kids and we have to feel like I have to get to know them so I know what they're thinking about, so I know how to support them best. So it's tricky, and it has been a real culture shift for me as a principal who's been here for 16 years, knowing everybody's kids since they were in kindergarten. And now I meet a fifth grader and they're like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Well, who are you?" We're going to get to know each other really quick. So yeah, any questions about school in general?
I have a question that's not related to anything we talked about, but I'm just wondering if there are plans for American Indian Awareness Week next week.
Trinity?
Yes, absolutely. There are plans. Generally, in the past, we've been able to have school assemblies and bring in performances and storytellers. So that's really now on our teachers. They have a slide deck. They have a different slide every day where they're going to be able to share some folklore, some stories, some performances, and then they'll have an activity that they can do in their class. So generally it's a bigger celebration, but with our constraints, that's where we are right now. And we're hoping as we get into other months that we'll be able to have some celebrations to really acknowledge our families and their cultures.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're running a little behind schedule here in our idea of talking to new families, Native families, Hispanic families. So I will be having a conversation and coffee with the principal with our Hispanic families next week. And our Native American families will not be during Native American Family Week, but we will have it in November. Because I do want you to come in and feel comfortable and ask questions regarding your kids and their education and how we're working with them. So I call them affinity groups, and we'll be having several of them as we move forward. I would really like to have one where we just talk to parents who are new to Marcy. The tricky thing is we all have to wear a mask. We all have to stay far away from each other. We have to have it in the, if I have it in the cafeteria, there's all these boundaries. I mean, I'd like to just rent a coffee shop and then we could just go there and take our masks off if we're vaccinated, but I don't know. We'll see. Oh yeah, you're still recording. I would never do that. Okay. So I think we can actually just end this part of the meeting now and put your screen on darkness if you would like to, and then go to the bathroom or whatever, and we'll reconvene at 7. How does that sound? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. 7 o'clock, we'll start another meeting. Yay.
Yeah.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for coming, Berkeley.
Bye, Berkeley.
Good to see you all.
It's just about 7 o'clock, my friends. So if you are back here and you'd like to join us for the Family Connections meeting, I'd welcome you to turn on your video to come join us, and we can start shortly. Okay. So, welcome everybody to the November Family Connections meeting at Marcy. I'd love for us just to go around and introduce who we are and maybe what grade or grades our kiddos are in at Marcy, or what your connection is to Marcy if you don't have a youth that goes here. And then we have just a couple kind of administrative things that we need to do. And then we will hear from our fabulous nurse, Kathleen. She's here and she's going to talk with us. And so we definitely want to give her that time. But if we can start with some introductions, we can just introduce ourselves and then pick someone on the screen to go next. So I will go first. My name is Claire Trolley. I use she, her pronouns, and only my oldest is old enough to go to Marcy, and they are in first grade in Nicole's class. So I will pop this over to Sydney.
Hi, everybody. I'm the family and community liaison. Both of my kids are alumni, went all the way through K through 8. And I'm thrilled to see everybody. I'm going to pop it over to Abra.
Hello, I am Abra Staffen-Wiebe, and I have a daughter, Thea, in 2nd grade and a son, Cassius, in 5th grade. And I'm going to be trying to take minutes for this thing. So if I ask you to repeat something, it's because I didn't quite catch it. So thanks.
I can go next. I'm Trinity. I'm the assistant principal at Marcy. I have 2 children that attend Marcy, a 2nd grader and a 4th grader. And they've been here, both of them, since they were in kindergarten. So I'm gonna pick Taylor next.
Hey, my name is Taylor, and I have a daughter who's in kindergarten at Marcy.
So my name is Donna Andrews. I'm the principal. I've been here a really long time. I have 3 kids. They're all old. So I'm popcorning over to Alicia.
Hi, I'm Alicia Kraft-Ader. I am, this is our first year at Marcy. I have a 5th grader and a 1st grader. This is the 5th grader, Scarlett. And we are new to Minneapolis as well.
I can go. I'm Kate. I have a kindergartner in Stacy's class and a 3rd grader in Katie's class. Hi, Wyatt. Do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Carrie, and that's Ryan back there. You can see his plaid. This is Wyatt, who is in 3rd grade in Katie's class, and Walter is in kindergarten in Stacy's class. And I will pass over to Michael.
Hi, I'm Mike Hogan. My son Emmett is in 2nd grade. I had a moment there. I was like, I think he's in 2nd grade. We did Marcy last year, distance learning. So this is his first year, like, actually in the building. And since we call Emmett Emmy all the time, I'll pass it on to Emmy.
Hello, I'm Emmy. I have a cold, which is why I sound like this, but I have a kindergartner, Leora, who is in Ms. Leah's class, and also a 3-year-old. And I will pass it to Danny.
Hi, I'm Danny. I have a son in the High Five program. So first time having like, is my only child, first time having like a child in the public school and understanding all the process. So let's see here.
Can I tell?
Yeah, you can.
So my name is Oksana. I have Sophia, 3rd grade, and we are new here. We are from Ukraine, and even though Donna, you told that you are tired, I think you have a reward because my child loves teachers very well, and she loves Sarah, and I see how she hugs her at 6 in the evening when I'm getting her from kindergarten. So sorry, from Minneapolis kids. And today she told me, Mom, you know, every day I cannot wait when Hannah takes me for her lessons. So I think that's a reward for you. So whom next should I choose?
How about if you choose Susanna?
Thank you, Susanna.
Okay.
You hear me?
Hello, my name is Susanna, and then I am the bilingual program assistant, and this year I'm Marcy. And then right now I am your bilingual interpreter. Thank you for having me tonight.
Pick somebody, Susanna.
And I will pop to, let me see here, who's not going yet. How about Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura, and my son Leo is in Stacy's kindergarten class. And let's see who still needs to go.
Sharon.
Sharon, yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sharon, and my daughter Avon is in 2nd grade, Andrea's class. Hey, I'm gonna pick Amy.
Amy Fox, are you there?
Hi, I'm Amy. I have a cat and a toddler and everything around me. So yeah, I have a 2nd grader, Josie, who's Avon's friend in Andrea's class. And then a 5-year-old who will be at Marcy next year, and almost 2-year-old.
How about Sonia next? You gotta unmute, Sonia.
Sorry, I was saying hi. I'm sick in bed, but I wanted to try to listen in anyway. I'm on hold with the pharmacy, but I have a kindergartner at Marcy who receives homebound services. He's disabled, but we hope that he'll be well enough to come and join his kindergarten cohort at some point. So his name's Foxy, and I hope that your kindergarten kids might get to interact with him a little bit virtually coming up in the next few months.
Okay, I think that we got everyone. Nurse Kathleen's going to introduce herself a little bit more in a bit. So in the chat, I have put just kind of an outline agenda for the meeting today. And so you can see we have just a few little kind of administrative things that we need to do quickly before we move on to Nurse Kathleen and the star of our show tonight. So thank you all for coming. I think the big announcements are that we're going to be having the COVID vaccine clinic at Marcy on the 19th. And so we have Nurse Kathleen coming to talk with us a little bit more about that. But before we get to that, in the agenda, you can see the minutes from our meeting last month are linked there. And so if we can get a motion to accept, adopt,
Approve.
approve these meeting minutes, that would be fabulous, so that we can hear about more exciting things.
I motion to approve the October meeting minutes.
Would anyone be willing to second?
I second.
Thank you. Wonderful. And then the next thing that we wanted to talk about, we had an election day bake sale. So thank you to everyone who dropped off baked goods. There was some amazing donations, both homemade and store-bought. And we had the coffee donated from the coffee shop Northeast, which was lovely. And I would like to turn it over to Kate so that she can let us know how we did.
Yeah, it was great. Again, thanks for folks coming, and for Abra for having the fantastic idea and alerting us to the fact that there was going to be all these people coming to the school and we should really hit them up for money, which was a great success. In total, we raised $1,136. So super successful. It blew away my expectations for sure. And as the first fundraiser of the year, I think it sets us off on a great trajectory. I think for future years, we can expand a lot as well. Just think of presidential elections and all the people that are going to come and visit the school. So yeah, so thank you to everyone. I think what a great way to start off the year. And set us on a good foot, and also just make connections with folks in the community as well. There was, I think, a lot of people that came that were excited to see us out there and had, connections to the school from either their community or their kids had gone there or they had gone there in a couple of cases. So it was really fun to see people excited about being able to support Marcy personally. So
yeah, I saw a couple who came and donated even though they didn't take a cookie, just because they wanted to chat and support the school. So that was really great. And this was an off-year election, so yeah.
That's right. And now that we know that it's the mayor's polling location, we can, I don't know, hit them up for something special. I'm not sure. So that's the report on that. We had talked about at the last meeting the possibility of starting a fundraising subcommittee to really think about what we can do this coming year in, again, a year that's going to be marked by COVID and our inability to do a lot of in-person things. The bake sale was great because we were outside, although I think that we're heading towards the end of the possibilities of comfortable outside activities for fundraisers. It was pretty chilly. So yeah, I think a couple folks last meeting had indicated some interest in a fundraising subcommittee. It'd be great if anyone wanted to do that. I would be excited to be part of that. If you want to think about reaching out and meeting sometime not during this time frame, kind of in addition to these meetings, I would love to brainstorm with folks about what we can do, some of the things that we've done in the past, new ideas to try, learning from all you new parents to Marcy that have great experiences from other schools. So maybe put in the chat or let Claire or myself know if that's something you'd be interested in, and I'm happy to coordinate that stuff.
Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat, and if you want to send me an email if you're interested in being part of the fundraising committee or have ideas, let me know. And Kate also put her email in the chat as well. Thanks, Kate.
I didn't think of that. Thanks, Claire.
And then before we move on to Nurse Kathleen, Sydney, I'm not sure if you had anything that you know a whole bunch of stuff, and I wasn't sure if you needed to give us information or share anything with us.
I'm good. Donna has an idea for a fundraiser that we can maybe talk about at a later date. She needs to talk to her daughter-in-law who's in Turkey, and is also a teacher. So, but I got nothing. I thought the bake sale was just fabulous. So that was kind of re-energizing. But yeah, let's get to Kathleen.
I have to say, whoever made the Harry Potter house cupcakes, we bought those and had so much fun at my house, and none of us agreed that we were the house of the cupcake that we got, but that's okay. We still enjoyed them, and they were awesome. I mean, I swear I'm a Ravenclaw, but anyway.
Okay. Nurse Kathleen, are you ready to chat with us?
I am.
Okay, wonderful. Nurse Kathleen is our nurse at Marcy, and she's going to let us know a little bit about what she does, helpful information that we could use to assist her as our school health person, and I'm sure there's lots of questions also about the COVID clinic coming up. So. Without further ado, I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Clara.
Kathleen, I'm sorry, Kathleen, I'm sorry, but I just have to have a breaking moment here.
Ew.
So I have some parents sitting with me who came to Marcy tonight to come to the meeting because somehow they didn't realize that it was online. So that's probably our bad, and we'll talk with our bilingual person about it. But I wanted to let them introduce themselves and tell us who their kids are that go to Marcy. Hi. You could just say your name.
Oh, my name is Awa. I'm Sudesi Noor, his mom.
And my name is Awale Noor. I am a father of Sudesi Noor.
So they're here with me in the office because it couldn't get any stranger than this. But I'm glad that one of our teachers called us to say they were waiting outside. So there you go.
Yeah, we thought the meeting is going to be in person. So we were here at the 7 o'clock.
So
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Parent Council, Family Connections.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming. Welcome.
So I guess that's back to me. I am Nurse Kathleen. This is my 4th year at Marcy, and it's my forever home. I just love it at Marcy. The Marcy community is very welcoming. It was super fun to come on with you guys tonight. I should come to more of these. I get to see some of the kiddos from the daytime, and it's super fun to see the parents as well and put pieces together. I am fortunate to get to work with all grades. So pre-K all the way through 5. I know several of your students that I've seen on tonight. Hi guys. Let's see, what do I do at Marcy? Well, I do a lot of stuff. It's a lot more than just ice packs and Band-Aids, although that is a chunk as well. I am there to oversee the health and wellness of the entire school community. So I'm there for preventative health. I try to organize dental clinics, vision clinics. We just had our 1st and 2nd grade audiology screenings on Tuesday, screened almost 200 students hearing that day. It was pretty exciting. So we do a lot of preventative health. Along with that is the flu shot clinic that I try to hold every fall. We used to have it during the fall festival in person, but lately during the pandemic, I've been offering it during the open house. It seems to work better for that. And our upcoming COVID clinic would fall under the preventative health as well. Very excited about that. We're very fortunate to have been paired with MDH and a medical provider to bring the COVID vaccine to our 5 to 11-year-olds at our school. And other things that I do at Marcy are, well, we see your children day to day. If they're sick or injured, we do a lot of assessments every single day. I know I've called many of you and spoken to you on the phone. I know every time you hear the nurse call, you the first thing you think is, oh my God, what happened? Most of the time when I'm calling, I'm just reaching out to touch base. I like to talk to families, and I like to make a relationship so that when if I have to make a call that's not so awesome, it's a familiar voice that you're hearing on the other end of the line. Let's see. I am an actual nurse. I know some people are not sure about that. Yes, I am a licensed nurse, registered nurse, public health nurse, and I work in the office Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm not there on Wednesdays, so sorry if I miss you on those days. But Natasha, the health assistant, is there every single day, and she is brand new to Marcy this year, and she has been just an absolute gift. She's so good with the kids, and she's very intuitive. She's actually a licensed practical nurse from Jamaica, working on getting her licensure here. So she is overqualified for the position, and we're very happy to have her. I know that you guys are all eager to hear about the vaccine clinic. So I did drop information about it into the chat. There's a link in there to register if you're chomping at the bit. And I do recommend that you pre-register. So the clinic will be Friday, November 19th. That's next week, from 4 to 8:30. So you can register for a time slot. Trinity has registered already. And so she may be able to speak more to that process of what they ask for when you're going through there. Insurance is not required. What is required is that an adult, a parent, is with their child during the immunization process. It's not something that we would ever do without parent permission. It is something that you can show up with your child to do. Let's see, MDH is sending us 5 to 6 nurses, and we're hoping to have some very nice private immunization sites within the classrooms, and a little bit of a coloring and movie party afterwards, hopefully for the kids to make it fun and rewarding. And we encourage you, if you bring your children into the immunization clinic, to try to make it fun and exciting. I do have some suggestions if your children are a little shot shy, and I can send those out. Let's see, I suppose I could put them in the Parents Press, or I can give you Claire, and I'm sure you have your ways, your magical ways to get them out. One of them is Daniel Tiger Gets a Shot. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but that's very popular with the little kids. And in this one, he gets a shot from his doctor, and it's a very nice process how it comes up to it, and the things that they talk about, how to picture that happy place in your mind. Some other ones, if you Google, trying to think what I Googled, but like my child's afraid of shots, or calming children before shots. There are a million resources out there. If you want to bring like their favorite teddy bear to cuddle while they get their shot, that could be very soothing and helpful. A new trick that I learned last week is if you give a slight cough, nothing too violent, don't want to be jerking all over, but if you give a slight cough, it kind of distracts your nervous system from really tuning into that prick in the shoulder. And best advice I can give to parents before they bring their children to any kind of immunization clinic is to just be honest with them. We don't want to dwell on the fact that it's going to hurt, but telling them that, yeah, it will hurt a little bit and it's going to be okay because it's temporary and you're strong and you're brave, but don't lie to them and tell them, oh yeah, it's a breeze. You won't feel anything at all, because we want our kids to trust us, obviously. And it starts with just being honest and open with our children. Let's see, do you have any questions, or did I not touch on something and Trinity and Donna want to chime in?
I have a quick question. Oh, I think it's awesome that Marcy's offering it. I'm wondering if there are any parents that haven't been vaccinated yet that want to. Are they able to, or is it just 5 to 11?
So originally it's Emmy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, originally, Emmy, I had requested that we have vaccines for adults as well as children, and including the booster shot for any staff at the school that would like to get it. However, once I met with Minnesota Department of Health, and they said, no, we can only do ages 5 to 11 because the dose is different.
Right.
And they're worried that if they have the different doses, that they could accidentally give the wrong dose to the wrong person.
Sure.
So I totally understand that. And once I heard that, I said, oh, I understand. Yes, only 5 to 11. That's what we'll do. So unfortunately, no, we won't have them for ages 12 and up. But I do recommend that you go and find a place to get it if you haven't gotten it yet. There are many places that you can get shots for 12 and up. The 5 and 11 seems to be the tricky one. So we're hoping to focus on those groups. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Anything you heard on Instagram or Facebook or from your grandma or friend that you want clarification on?
I don't have any of that, but I was just wondering if there was a need for volunteers or any assistance at the vaccine clinic.
Oh, of course. We love volunteers. We'll take all the volunteers we can get.
And how can we sign up for that?
If you want to contact Sydney and give her your name, I'm sure she would be happy to coordinate. I don't know if parents need certain forms to fill out before they can volunteer in the school or not, but Sydney's the expert in that department, so I'll leave that one up to her.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have paperwork that needs to be completed. So I can get it to you.
Okay. Is it the same paperwork that would be necessary for volunteering in the classroom?
Mommy, hug me.
It is.
I've already filled that out, so I think that I should
Mommy,
hopefully be
hug
good, but
You
I'll
have, you have
I'll
one
email
in
you, Sydney.
Stacy's room. Okay.
I am volunteering
Yeah, just got
in Stacy's room and Katie's
several
room.
from Stacy's. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all you need.
Okay.
Any other questions? I can answer other questions besides COVID. Like if you're interested in having medication at school, what the policy is for that for your student, or if you have vision or hearing concerns for your student, how you might go about asking for screenings.
Kathleen, I think both of those would be great to know.
Okay, so there is a policy, or there's a method to both. If you are interested in having medication at school for your student, and that can be a lot of different things. It can be medication for ADHD, it can be their asthma rescue inhaler. Maybe you want to keep a little extra Benadryl on hand in case your child is prone to certain allergies. We've got a couple kids with eye drops because they, for whatever reason, they just get these itchy eyes during the day. Or Tums, things like that. Advil for headaches. What you need to do is get an order from your doctor. So the doctor fills out an order saying, this student needs this much Advil whenever they get a headache. That comes to me. I get a parent signature on there approving that it's okay to administer those medications. You bring the medication into school in a labeled bottle. So if it's coming from the pharmacy, it needs to be labeled with the student's name, can't be expired. You know, or if it's an over-the-counter medication like Advil or Benadryl or Tums, it just needs to come in the packaging that it was purchased in. So no medications in like Ziploc bags or pill boxes or things like that. It's a pretty simple process, and oftentimes I will just fill out the form for you, send it to your email, you digitally sign it, I send it to your provider, they complete the rest of it and fax it back, and we're ready to roll. So that's medication in a nutshell. Any questions on that? No, okay. And then the other thing is sometimes parents might think, gosh, you know, every time I call my kid's name, I have to really yell it to get them to turn around and pay attention. Now, a lot of times that is selective hearing. It's my official diagnosis. However, I'm always happy to screen your children's hearing or vision if you have any concerns for either of those. And if I get any red flags or see any concerns, then I'll make a medical referral to get a more comprehensive exam with your doctor. Mm-hmm.
And Kathleen, I know there had been a request prior. Are you still looking for snacks and pants and underwear and socks for your office?
I am always looking for those things, Claire, so thanks for bringing that up. Yes, I seem to run through pants and underwear like they're going out of style. For every 5-6 pants I send out, I get back maybe one of them. So I do need some pants. Right now we're missing sort of those middle sizes, the really like the 2nd grade to 4th grade size. I've got quite a few of pre-K, K and 1st grade right now, but that middle section of our cohort, we could really use some pants. I prefer to get the stretchy ones because then they're easier to fit on different bodies, different sizes. So sweatpants and leggings are always a go. I'm pretty good on socks currently. I have a whole Tupperware bin, big Rubbermaid bin of socks and underwear, but pants are always tricky. For snacks, I'm set right now. I've got some lovely granola bars that I think you donated, Claire. And I have some honey graham crackers and some pretzels. So those are the three things I can offer to kids when they come down and maybe they've got a headache because they didn't eat enough breakfast because they didn't like what was offered or whatever. And then I can give them a little snack, boost that blood sugar up until it can get to lunch or until they get to snack in the afternoon. But right now we're pretty good. But yes, every once in a while in the Parents Press, you'll see me asking for certain things that we've run out of, and frequently they're pants or snacks.
Sonia, if you have a question, please unmute.
Hi, my name is Sonia. Hi, Kathleen. I have a student who's homebound right now due to disability, but we hope he'll be in person at some point in the future. And I was wondering if students who require educational PCA services, do those coordinate through your office, or is that a different coordination?
If they're educational PCA, I would say they're going to typically coordinate through their IEP, so their case manager and things like that. If they're medical in nature, such as trach suctioning or things like that, then that would definitely go through me. If it's assisting with daily needs, such as feeding, toileting, things of those nature, that would be through their case manager.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course.
So Kathleen, we're coming on to like the sniffle and cough season. We've kind of already started it. What are some good things to know, when is okay to send the kid to school and when is not okay to send the kid to school to keep everyone healthy?
Excellent question. I'm glad you asked. So it's hard. It's right now, living through the pandemic, it's so different than it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, a kid would come in with a little cough, a little sneeze, not feeling great, but feeling well enough to be in school and participate fully, and would just let it slide. That is not the case anymore. Now we have guidelines set out by the Minnesota Department of Health that we have to follow. And so they're very strict. It's called the decision tree. If you Google Minnesota Department of Health or MDH decision tree, it will come right up, be the first thing that comes up. Claire, if you see it, you can pop it into the chat. But basically, if you have a cough, a fever, or a loss of taste or smell, those are my three big ones. If you come to school, I'm gonna send you back home. Fever has always been one. No fever at school, but now cough. So if someone has a cough, we ask that they get a COVID test to rule that out. All we need to see is that negative COVID test, and then they're welcome to come back in. We're seeing a lot of kids with congestion and the sniffles right now because it is cold and flu season, right? And if it's just a little bit of congestion, nothing too major, we're not talking about like filling up our mask with juicy nose stuff, then again, it's kind of, we let it slide, they're masked, we're feeling pretty good about how those masks are working. However, if they have two lesser symptoms of COVID, and this is where it gets kind of tricky and confusing for parents because people are like, wait a minute, that's a symptom of COVID? Yeah, COVID has a lot of weird symptoms. We see a lot of headaches in kids with COVID. So they might have a headache and nothing else. So if someone comes to my office with a headache, I'm trying to rule out, why did they have the headache? Are they dehydrated? Did they not eat enough? Did they stay up all night and play Xbox instead of sleeping? A lot of different reasons. Maybe they need glasses and they don't have glasses. If I can figure out a reason for that headache besides COVID, we're going to probably just let the kid rest, see if we can get the head feeling better. But if there isn't really an explanation for it, then they might need to go home, especially if it's coupled with another symptom of COVID, such as a runny nose, a sore throat, vomiting. That's an automatic get out of jail free too. Nobody wants people vomiting at school. Vomiting, diarrhea, GI upset, stomach upset. Those are all symptoms that we're seeing in the pediatric population, more so than the adult population. We're seeing a lot more headaches and GI upset. So I've had students that come down and they vomit in the health office, and I say, oh, I think we better go home and rest this off. And while you're there, might as well get a COVID test. And we have had them come back positive. So if you have a student who has 2 of those less common symptoms, like maybe they've got a tummy ache and they're congested, I would have to send them home and get a COVID test to rule it out. And so if you look at that decision tree, you'll see right along the top, they have the more common symptoms and the less common symptoms. And then if you look along the left side of the decision tree, you'll see 1 more common symptom or 2 less common symptoms. And then you follow that algorithm across to see what the next steps would be. And that's what I'm using. I'm not making these rules up. These are come down from the Minnesota Department of Health, very similar to the CDC recommendations. And that is what Minneapolis Public Schools is what they're using for their decisions on who gets to stay and who has to go. But fever, no go. Vomiting, no go. Lots of taste or smell. And then with diarrhea, it's really tricky. With our littles who just cannot get to the bathroom in time, I recommend they stay home until that's cleared up. Sometimes when we had our older students, if it was occasional and it wasn't too bad, they can manage it okay at school. But those are the things that we want to be pretty cleared up before they return. So we ask that students come back when they're fever-free for 24 full hours without the use of fever-reducing medications. So no Advil, no Tylenol. Yeah. Oh, and then the weird one, rashes. Undiagnosed rashes are also a no-go in school. So if your student has some kind of funky rash that you aren't really sure what it is, if I saw that at school, I would ask you to come get them and have it looked at, because we need to know if it's infectious or not. Most rashes are not, but occasionally they can be.
Kathleen, oh, go ahead, Abra.
I was just going to say that the Minneapolis Schools has a flyer that they have out, and it says you're supposed to keep a student home if they have only 1 symptom, and it includes like a runny nose or a headache or fatigue, but only, it's not the full flow chart. It's just if you have any symptoms, keep them home. So which is it? I prefer the flow chart.
So in an ideal world, right? If everything was done perfectly, kids would never come to school when they're sick. But I'm a little bit more grounded in reality, right? That's just not a realistic expectation. So if a student is very, very mild, like just the sniffles, a couple little sniffles, no cough, it's a judgment call. Are they going to be able to participate 100% in class? Are they going to wear their mask appropriately throughout the school day? So those are, they're nuances, right? It's never black and white. We kind of live in this gray zone in between where things aren't clear. I go by the decision tree. That's what I'm using. That's what I'm instructed to use by the director of nursing in Minneapolis. So that's what I would say. I think there was another question too.
Oh, I was going to ask if you could help explain what the quarantine policy is for close contacts.
Yes,
because we've had a couple, and it's been different both times. So I'm wondering.
Yes, because it changed.
Yeah.
Because we're in an ever-evolving society. So it was that the quarantine was a 14-day quarantine. However, starting on November 8th, which is pretty recently, the district moved to a 10-day quarantine based on the evidence and data that supported that. We're seeing with the Delta variant, which is pretty much 99% of the ones that we're seeing now, that most people infected with the Delta variant will become symptomatic, if they're going to become symptomatic, by about day 5 to 7, somewhere in there. Now, have there been people who haven't become symptomatic until day 12? Yeah, but statistically speaking, it's a pretty small group. So they're trying to get kids to stay in school as much as possible. So how I work when I hear about a positive COVID case at school, I first go to the classroom. Say there's a student in that classroom who tested positive for COVID. First thing I'm going to do is go talk to that teacher. I'm going to ask, where does the student sit? Who sits next to them? Anyone who sits within a 3-foot radius of that student automatically is considered a close contact and will need to quarantine. And then I look at a 6-foot radius around that student. Are the people in this 6-foot radius all wearing masks really well? If you have one of them that maybe it needs frequent reminders throughout the day, raise your mask, that student would need to quarantine as well. Now, I'm not just looking at the table, right? Because we have an elementary school, so we do floor time. We have table time. We've got the lunchroom. We've got our centers. So they go to music class or theater. I'm looking at all of those situations. And fortunately, most of our teachers have been really good at aligning their seating chart to be the same across the board. So it really minimizes how many students are identified as close contacts. And that has been something that we've learned from error, right? We're all learning along the way. So once I identify my close contacts, I try to call every single family that is affected to verbally talk with them and explain the situation. I will also send out an email to everyone who's been quarantined with more information on how to order meal kits during quarantine, what the return date is, because a lot of times I call and I talk to you and 30 seconds later, you're like, wait, what did she say? Because it's a lot of information. So I do like to follow it up with an email. Then the entire class gets an email saying, your child may have been exposed to COVID. Now, that is not saying that those students need to quarantine, but they do need to monitor for symptoms. So for the next 14 days, if your student develops a fever, cough, you're thinking in the back of your head, hey, there was a kid with COVID in their classroom. I should go get them COVID tested. I recommend anybody get COVID tested when they've had, exposure. We do the same thing for the bus. So we look at the bus seating chart, which I will say, unfortunately, has not been awesome. I don't think any bus drivers are adhering to the seating charts.
I don't think my kids know there's a seating chart.
I'll email the district, or not the district, but the head of transportation and say, I need the seating chart for bus 3 or bus 5. And they send it right back. And I'm like, this is so great. We have a seating chart. And then I start to interview some of the families from that bus. They're like, no, they kind of just sit wherever they want. So that is a little spot where we're falling through. However, that being said, knock on couch, no one has contracted COVID from a bus ride at Marcy yet. And we've had plenty of kids with COVID on the buses. So I think they're doing a good job wearing masks, or the ventilation is excellent, or I don't know, lucky, I guess. Does that sort of answer how I do close contact tracing?
Does the 10 days, is that based on when that person tested positive for COVID and was noted on
Yeah, so for the person who tested positive for COVID, I go by either the day that they became symptomatic or the day that they tested, whichever comes first. Okay. So say they got the sniffles on Thursday, they had the test on Saturday, came back positive. We're going to call Thursday their day 0. And then we're going to count out 10 more days where they need to isolate. And on day 11, they return to activities. Same goes for the close contacts. I look at the last date of exposure. So say they were exposed on Wednesday. I'm going to count Wednesday as day 0. I'm going to count 10 full days of quarantine at home. And then they come back on day 11. Now, unfortunately, we don't find out about positive COVID cases the day they happen. It's days after, they maybe like the family is like, oh yeah, we went in for our Friday test. We go every 2 weeks and get tested. And our kindergartner tested positive, no symptoms, nothing. But we didn't get the results back for 3 days.
Sure.
So then oftentimes when I call families, like we had to call families this week and say, hi, your class was exposed, but we didn't know about it until way later. So you need to have your child isolate for Thursday and Friday, and we'll see him back on Monday.
Yep, that's my kiddo.
So it's all over the place. And I wish that I could tell people faster, but I can only move as fast as the information comes back to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's all messy. Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question about the bus notifications?
Yes,
so
please.
Is it like a school notification where every child on, like a classroom notification where every child on the bus is notified that they may have been exposed?
Yes, it's the exact same one. And I've really tried hard to clarify where the exposure occurred, because I know early on when I was sending these robo emails out, it didn't say, and then I would get all sorts of parents calling, wait, which class was it? So I've learned that I need to say exposure was on this date and this is the location. So bus 6 or whatever. And you only get those if you're signed up to receive Marcy robo emails. So I know some people have opted out of them because it was just too much. But that's the way that you get that mass email.
Yeah, go ahead and ask your question.
Great, thank you. So is there only an email if there is a close contact for your kid? If there's anyone at the school, there's no mass email that says there's been an exposure, but if you're a close contact, you would have been contacted?
So the only emails that I send out are the close contact email. And with that, I call. If your student's identified as close contact, you'll hear from me. And then the other email I send out is if there was a positive case in your child's classroom or on the bus that they ride or in Minneapolis Kids or, whatever, wherever it was, that's what I'm going to send out. But I don't send out an email for the whole school saying that there was a positive case at school this week, because your student in 5th grade never contacted that student in 3rd grade that tested positive. So I don't notify that way. It's only if there's a for sure they could have been exposed because they were in the same classroom or on the same bus.
Okay, I just where he'd come home, where he'd gotten those types of emails, and so I'm getting used to the processes here. I'm sorry, but because I hadn't gotten any of those, I was like, no one at the school has gotten COVID ever. So was my assumption, because none of those had come out.
Yes, unfortunately, no. If you look at the let's see, what is it? The Minnesota Department of Health COVID dashboard, they have a list of schools that have had cases. And unfortunately, Marcy has been on that list. Much more this year than it was last year. This Delta variant is it's getting to the kids a lot more than last spring when we didn't have it. So.
Kathleen, I've heard some people say, hey, the rapid test where you find out in like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes, that's not accurate. That's not okay enough for a COVID test. You have to have the 2-day send away, get your results back. What is up with those different types of tests?
Yeah, so unfortunately, there is some truth to that. Again, not cut and dry, but what I will say is that the rapid antigen tests, which are the ones that come back really quickly, or you can buy off the shelf the Binax or Binax tests, they are good when you're symptomatic. So say your student has a cough or a fever, or they've got some body aches or whatever, going in and getting that rapid test and getting a negative back, I'm going to trust that. Because they just don't do a very good job of detecting a viral load when it's really low. So when you've got an asymptomatic case of COVID, or you're just right at the beginning of getting sick, but you're not sick yet, A lot of times those rapid antigen tests will have a false negative. So the tried and true are the PCR tests or the NAAT tests. When you sign up to get a COVID test at Walgreens or COVID or at your doctor's office, oftentimes you'll see what you're signing up for. And if you're asymptomatic and you're feeling good and you just want to do it as a screening, or say you're identified as a close contact, but you're feeling fine and you just want to find out, I recommend getting the PCR and AAT tests, not the rapid antigen tests. Those rapid antigen tests are really nice when you've got a very sick person and you want to find out right away, is this COVID? But otherwise, not so great. However, I will say that some of the PCR and NAAT tests can be quickly returned. I know the last few times I've had my kids tested, we've gone to Park Nicollet and they've done the PCR nasal swab and it's come back within 24 hours. So they can turn around quickly. It just depends on how many people are being tested. And unfortunately, right now in Minnesota, we're having a spike in cases and a spike in testing. So testing times are a little slower turning around.
I have one more question. So we have some upcoming holidays or family gatherings or gatherings that are currently happening. What are ways that we can all keep each other safe as we commingle households maybe a little bit more than usual?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If you are planning on doing any kind of travel or you're planning on meeting up with family, I recommend getting some tests done within 2 days of that event, just to have peace of mind. It's not a fail safe by any means, but it's going to decrease the likelihood of somebody unintentionally spreading COVID. Now, I really think that it's important to take care of our mental health during this time, and being with family and doing these celebrations that we've done throughout the years is going to have a positive effect on our mental health. And it can be done safely, moderately, right? Nothing in life is perfectly safe. We take risks every day. We get into the car and drive. We do all sorts of things that have some level of risk. So as long as we're taking the precautions to mitigate those risks, I think it can be done safely. So get tested maybe 2 days before that event. If you're meeting with someone who has underlying health condition or they're frail, wearing masks around them is a good idea. So if you've got an elderly grandparent that you're seeing, it might be a good idea to wear masks around them. You can socially distance and still be with each other. I'm for seeing your family and doing those things.
Okay, any other questions that anybody has for Nurse Kathleen? Okay, Kathleen, thank you so much for coming and answering our questions. Thank you for doing all of the work that you're doing to set up the COVID clinic or the COVID vaccine clinic for our 5 to 11-year-old kiddos to get vaccinated there if they're able to get vaccinated there. And thanks for, just being a happy, warm, comforting person when we unintentionally send sick kiddos to school.
Of course, not a problem. Thank you guys for having me tonight.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Okay. So I don't think that we have any other old business or new business that we need to talk about this evening, unless anybody else had something that they wanted to bring up or that they wanted to talk about this evening. Please, by all means, share. but I don't see or hear anybody indicating that they have something to say. So with that, we are going to adjourn this meeting. We'll have another meeting the second Thursday of December as well. And hopefully we'll have another staff person from Marcy being able to talk to us then as well. But otherwise, have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for sitting with us for the last 2 hours, and stay well and stay safe.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.